Well, for one thing, that it's in Russia, and that's super special. That's really special, and I feel extremely honored and grateful. I also find that when it's 100 pictures like this, and they are, made over the almost 45 years, 46 years that it represents. There isn't a year where there isn't a picture. There isn't a year where I haven't had production. Every picture is the same because it's me or somebody. It's me, of course. But I don't think of them as self-portraits necessarily. I just have to make them because they're difficult. Myself. I have to make them myself because they're dangerous. And because the invention happens right there. And I don't really want to be behind the camera. I want to see what the camera did. But the continuity is what makes it special for me, that in the chronology of my work, there's no stopping point yet. Of course, there will be. But right now, to the picture I made today, which is, I think, good enough to be on the wall, that my working method for the St. Petersburg audience to see an artwork, and not every art has to be this way, but for me it has been an ongoing process that continues to, for me at least, deliver every picture the same and every picture different. There's an image where there's a tree on the other side of a small pond, and to the left of it is it's actually an old prison, and then to the right of it is the tree. It has some other trees that are also reflected in the water. And I'm waiting actually for the wind. I'm holding my fist kind of like this. The tree is here. But I needed the wind to move the reflection of the tree so that it would feel more real. Because when it was all clean and not disturbed, you saw it as not such a great idea. But as soon as it moved here, it felt like it was in my hand. The one right over here. I'm on the edge of a cliff, and it goes straight down to the lake, which would be like being on the 10th floor of a building. To make the picture required that you don't look down because you'd be petrified. I'm not a rock climber. I'm athletic, but I'm not a solo free climbing rock climber. But I had rehearsed it somewhere else, and it was so easy to do that I had to say to myself that there is nothing going down. It's simply here. It's as if looking at you between us. You were on a building that was 10 floors up, and I was on a building 10 floors up. And if we look down, right, so I have to reach over to you, essentially. That isn't how the picture was made, but it was just frightening. And the only way I could do it is to know that I could do it without having that depth below me. Technically, none of them are more complicated than that. There isn't very much preparation. I don't even know the idea until I get to the place. So I use the place to create the idea. The ones where I'm under the snow are perhaps the most difficult because it's really cold. And in one of them, I emerged from a snowbank. To get my head to that place, I had to go under the snow. And so I have to like break through the snow. It was pretty hard. And by that time I was just frigid. I was so cold. I didn't know what's going to happen. And the camera, I was able to, with the timer, wait for a moment for the timer to come on. And afterwards I just like, busted out of the snow. And I looked at what was there, and there was blood on the snow, because when I went under, I scraped across ice, but you couldn't feel it. So it wasn't serious, but it was technically not a simple picture to make, and one exposure very often in pictures like that, because you process the film later and you don't know if it's going to come out or not. Sometimes it could be 2 or 3 weeks before I process. And that's when I find out that it worked. That's a super fascinating question. Well, the first one happened when I made this photograph of just one leg. And you just see my rear end. And it's another snow image. I couldn't believe the negative when I saw the negative, that I was able to hide myself behind myself, that I could eliminate my head, my arms, my other foot, everything. And that taught me immediately. This was in 1974, before any kind of manipulation or Photoshop. It taught me that there is a critical point at which the camera has to be for something miraculous to perhaps happen. And then the next probably indication of something like this occurred when I realized that reality would have an opportunity to make the picture. That reality that I couldn't imagine. I'm kind of looking for such an example here at the moment. Well, maybe this one of the hand writing on water, and this is now 25 years later, almost 26 years later, in terms of advancing the idea that the reality would create something that I could not see. A reflection is like that, and so I didn't know. I was just concerned with being underwater to get the pen to write on the water, and I wasn't thinking about the reflection. And so it told me that you have to let reality become a partner, let it collaborate with reality, because it will show you things that you couldn't have imagined. And continue, in other words, continue to be a documentary photographer. Another example of that is over here, where I'm again underwater and there's a reflection. If you look closely, you'll see that during the time that I was underwater, a fly was buzzing around and took me to be a rock, which is what I wanted to be, and landed on my back. Now, that was in 2009, and I'm still using film. But let's say if it was now, and I made that picture and I wanted to somehow put a fly on my back. I don't know why I would want to do that, but let's say I did want to do that. Okay, I could probably do that in Photoshop today. But then the thing that I wouldn't remember is that the fly needs to have a reflection. And even if I was smart enough to give the fly a reflection, I still wouldn't have put it in the right place. I would have put it exactly where it should be if the water was still. Instead, when you look at the picture where the reflection of the fly is an entirely different place than you would expect it to be. And so the reality of reality reinforces what to me has been the great journey of this work, just as the picture I made this morning from my hotel on my cell phone, that it sees things that I don't see. The picture from today maybe could be the third example for your question. And it reinforced for me that the idea that you had in mind can also evolve out of something quite simple. And there are pictures here where sometimes I might think, oh, how this stupid an idea this would be to take one hand and another hand and just take a picture of them. But when I was out in Oregon to do that, this hand is white and this hand is black. And to me, I love those two hands. It shares kind of some metaphoric message even for the humanity, that between all the skin tones we're all the same. But that simplicity, the trusting in simplicity, that I don't have to stand at the edge of a cliff every time or get bloody back in the snow, that it could just happen simply looking into a window and seeing an image.